Big news! Updated my Tesla. Was it worth it?
Brian, I am so excited about this because for me personally, as a consumer, I do not yet own a Tesla, but you, I would say you're somewhat of a Tesla veteran. And so I'm curious, as I'm thinking about doing it, is it going to be the right decision for me?
Yeah, I'm for a guy who drives cars for 10 and 12 years, I have been kind of a Tesla flipper.
Yep.
And the fact that I've owned a Tesla 3, Model 3, got that in 2018. Then I got the Model Y Performance. And now I'm happy to say I got a Tesla X Plaid, which is pretty cool.
And for those of you who don't know, that's the bigger SUV, right? Like that's one of the nicer Tesla models out there. And it was a little bit hard for you to make that adjustment, right? Like you were like, I don't know if I really want to do the top end model. And yet you've done it now. And so you've got some thoughts on whether it made sense or not,
now,
right?
I do think it's important that I disclose, because this is more of just giving you some thoughts on what it's like to be a Tesla owner, but then also, do I think it was worth it? But I want to disclose, I also think it's so interesting. I don't own a lot of individual shares. I'm an index investor. But after I bought my Tesla in 2018, I did go buy some individual shares of Tesla, and that's been its own exciting journey. But I kind of want to jump into, because I think a lot of you might be curious, what is it like? What the pros, the cons? Because I am an accountant. Let's give you the pluses and negatives of actually owning one of these unique vehicles.
Okay, Brian, so let's talk about the pros. One of the very first things, and this is what all Tesla owners have said to me, is the speed. Talk to us a little bit about how fast this thing is and how fast it is relative to the previous Teslas you've owned.
Yeah, every one of these Teslas is fast. I think Elon Musk even says we don't make slow Teslas. So it's gotten crazy. And it's kind of cool knowing that I do have one of the faster vehicles out there. But the reality is, since I am an accountant, I'm only a demon from 0 to 45. I'm not
like
much
to
more
45
dangerous.
miles an hour.
Yeah,
like
I'm not much more dangerous than that.
What about, okay, so it goes fast. What are some of the more practical pros of the Tesla?
Well, I think that even though there's been a lot of controversy or mixed results on this, a lot because Consumer Reports and others have come out and said, hey, electric vehicles, they're not as reliable. But then there's others that say, hey, wait a minute, before y'all say this is not reliable, electric vehicles, they use a lot less parts. They're using motors instead of complex engines that just don't have quite as many parts. So maintenance is practically nothing. And that's been my experience, is that because these cars are pretty simple with the components that are in them, there's really no maintenance. You're not having to change
no oil changes
every few thousand miles. You're not having to even rotate tires because they have different sizes on the front and back, so you don't even get to rotate tires. The biggest thing I've had to do with all my Teslas is basically put windshield washer fluid in it.
Okay, what about this? You know, when I sit in your car, when I've sat in all your cars, it feels a little bit like you're sitting inside of a computer to a certain extent. Is the technology a pro, con, good, bad?
Well, this is definitely a pro. If you think about the tech packages and these things, now they're intuitive, meaning that you're not going to get all the luxurious buttons that you might have been used to in your BMWs and your Audis and all those things in the past. This is going to be more of you set it and forget it within the interface, the screen that's in your Tesla. You're going to set up all your features and how you like it, and that's how it's going to work, which I think is kind of interesting. I didn't know that I loved it at first, but if you start, like I was in a friend's X5 recently, and I started noticing they don't have a lot of buttons on them anymore either. It's starting to be a lot more screens and a lot of integration. So I do feel like the tech is great. I love how these things update over time. It's really a cool feature, and you can tell there's a lot of engineering that goes into these vehicles.
But this is an electric car, right? So it's battery operated. You have to charge it. Surely that's got to be a con, right? Like it's a negative that you have to charge this automobile, and it's got to be a little inconvenient, right?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that under the cons, because there's definitely some range anxiety is a legitimate thing, but I do think it's great that Tesla specifically is that the charge network that you can go charge at superchargers all across the country, and it's also it's built into the navigation. So like when you want to go on a road trip, it will tell you where you have to stop, how long you have to stop, and it builds it all in there in real time.
Without you having to remember to put, I need to charge, it'll just do that thought.
And it even takes into account how busy are the superchargers in the network locations. So I actually like the integrated network charging network.
And then what about this? What about the purchase process? process? When you go to buy, you bought 3 now. Has it been similar? Has it been luck of the draw based on the salesman? What's that piece?
Yeah,
been like?
I will say, I mean, Tesla is pretty upfront. There's no like haggling process. You either buy it or you don't buy it. It's not like they bring in the finance guy to try to sell you an extended warranty. Also, like there's no bait and switch on the fact that like my wife's car, it had beautiful Google Maps, but then 3 months after she had been driving her car, all of a sudden it goes back to 1993 and everything is tan and the GPS doesn't have any, like real pictures.
Right.
But I get an email saying, hey, for $45 a month, you can subscribe to this Connect service that will allow you to keep this. I'm like, what? They didn't tell me anything about this. And the other thing I don't like about modern traditional cars, and I think this is changing, over-the-air updates. Think about all the cars that have all the hardware, and to increase safety and functionality, all they have to do is get a software update. Why is Tesla the only one that originally started where it was giving you over-the-air updates, where just like your iPhone updates, your car can update. So if it has the right hardware, you can get the right software and improve the functionality of it. That's a pretty cool thing. So that's why this is my list of pros.
Okay, but it can't be all sunshine and rainbows. There have to be some negatives, right? What are some of the negatives when it comes to driving a Tesla?
Yeah, range anxiety is a real thing. So I want to give you some range honesty. Here's the thing I think most people don't realize is that when you see a published range on an electric vehicle, that is the potential of the range the car can drive if it's charged to 100%. But the reality is nobody charges their batteries to 100%. These things don't even have the capability, like superchargers. They dump a ton of energy into your car when it's charging from 10% all the way up to 50%. And it's good from 50 to 80, but if you try to put mileage from 80 to 100, it takes hours, whereas 10 to 50, it's very fast. They put a lot of energy in your battery very quickly. That's the sweet spot. So when you see a published range on a car, realize it's really only going to be 80%. So if you look at like my Model 3, it was 330 miles. It's really 264 miles. The Model Y was 300 miles because it was the performance, so it's around 240. The Plaid X that I have is 333 is the published rate, so it's really only about 266 usable miles. That's important to know. That's plenty for day-to-day driving. But when you start talking about road trips and you need to know how that all works. And it's back to, if you didn't have the Tesla charging network, this could be a real problem.
A pretty bad negative. Okay, what are some other cons, negatives to owning the Tesla?
Well, look,
this one?
I think that, and this is they would say it's a feature. It's not a limitation, but it is one of those. It takes a little bit of learning. This isn't if you go sit in a friend who's got a Range Rover or a Porsche or a BMW or something like that, you'll get that luxury car experience. When you get into a Tesla, there's a lot of minimalism on display.
Like utilitarian almost.
Yeah, I mean it's not what I would say is your typical luxury feel, but it's still I still like it. I mean, it's a con if you're going for that luxury feel, but it's definitely different.
Well, now, what about this one, Brian? We were talking a little bit pre-show. You're like, yeah, okay, there's no bait and switch in the sales process. However, there is a little bit of pricing uncertainty when it comes to Teslas. What do you mean by that? What's the pricing uncertainty?
Well, Elon's kind of a wild card because I really do think that he is so bent on trying to change the world with this. Profit's not necessarily his motive on everything. So it's not uncommon if you get close to quarter end, he will the Tesla will come to a decision. They're just going to totally slash prices to move inventory, come up with promotions and all kind of other things. So there's just not a lot of stability in the pricing on Teslas. And you've seen that. And I'll talk about when I get into my the financial situation of mine, you'll see that I got kind of stuck by some of these crazy gimmicks that Elon does.
Yeah, and what about, but you said also there's some battery uncertainty as a negative. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, we know that the warranty on Teslas is they come with 8 years, and then they have mileage. Like I think the S and X is around 150,000 miles, the Y is 120, and then Model 3 I think is right around 100,000 miles. But, nobody really knows because these cars, I mean, we're just now starting to get to the end of the 8 to 9 year cycle when the first Teslas came on. What's it going to cost to change a battery? I mean, I don't know that we all know that. I mean, I've heard estimates it could be around $20,000. It'll be interesting to see what do you do with all these batteries when these cars need to essentially turn that over. You've gone beyond the life. That's why I say there is some uncertainty.
Okay, so you've talked about some pros and cons, the benefits and the lack of benefits that exists, but we're specifically talking about, was the upgrade worth it? Was moving from the Model 3 to the Y and ultimately from the Y to the X, was it worth it? Was it a prudent decision that you made? Walk us through the answer to that question.
Well, there was two big things that led to this decision. If you'll remember, there was Elon came out and he says, look, I'm going to give you a one-time, anybody who's got full self-driving, that's where the car does drive itself using the navigation. I'll let you do a one-time transfer to a brand new Tesla of your choice. So, but you have only 2 months to make this happen. I think it was a September 30th deadline. That kind of spurred some interest. And then bring that in with all of a sudden on the Model X and S, Elon basically slashed the prices on these premium cars, the high-end Teslas, by over $20,000. So those two things together, I was like, this is my chance because let's go ahead and do this. Now, here's the bad thing, and I don't mind sharing my numbers on this. Going to the Model X, it was a big upgrade. I mean, because it's an expensive car. And here's the part. So yes, this used to be a $140,000 to $150,000 car. So I was very excited at the price slashing that Elon did. But here's something I didn't think about. Just like I got incentivized to go jump because of what Elon had created with the full self-driving transfer as well as the slashing of the prices, that also created a lot of other Tesla people that wanted to sell their cars or turn them in. And as a result, my Model Y trade-in was disastrous. I mean, you can see $37,750. This is a car that I only drove for 2 years and it lost 40% of its value. That's much faster. We talk about 5 years, most cars lose 50% of their value. So that's even ahead of the curve.
And 2.
Yeah, so that's you can see. So a lot of that excitement I had about the lower prices on the Model X,
he got it back on the other side.
He flooded the market with these incentives, so it actually impacted the price. So that leads to when you look at this, because it was a little over $50,000 upgrade to get to this Model X. Was it worth it? And here's my honest takeaway from this. Financially, probably not.
Okay.
And I'm being honest because look, if you think about it, just look at the nuts and bolts of this. Full self-driving is a $12,000 upgrade, and I saved $20,000 on where Tesla Model X's were right before all these announcements came out. That's probably not enough to warrant a $50,000 upgrade. So I'm willing to be honest about that.
But this decision wasn't all about just finances, right? Like it was not about, am I making the absolute best financial decision? There's more that went into this decision, especially at this stage of your financial life, right?
Yeah, and I think that's the takeaway. I am still very happy with the decision just because, let's face it, if I'm going to have full self-driving, it's nice to have it on a vehicle that I think I'm going to keep for many years to come. I do like the fact I've reset that 8-year warranty on the battery and I have the higher mileage limit. And let's take out the finances and just go with the family dynamic. My wife likes the ride and the experience in the Model X a lot more.
Happy wife, happy life in that scenario.
My youngest daughter loves that there's an entertainment system in the back with YouTube and Netflix and all this other stuff that she can watch and play with. And then my oldest daughter, because let's face it, our primary job when you get older and your kids get older and have a little more self-realization of what cool is and how to be embarrassed, is I love embarrassing my daughter when I go on her college campus and popping those doors, those crazy Gulfwing, X-Wing doors open because she gets so embarrassed about every little thing. So it's mission accomplished for me. And then I don't mind sharing that this is one of the things we talk about. I talk about financial order of operations. And one of the things about if you can make the right sacrifices, the right financial decisions in the beginning of your journey, by the time you get to step 8 of prepaid financial expenses or abundance goals, as I like to say it, you can actually make decisions not because of just the finances, because this is just what you think would give you the best version of your life. Do things how you want, when you want, and why you want to do them. And for me right now, I'm willing that I took small sacrifices years ago this is part of that abundance journey, and I've really enjoyed it.
If you want to know how you can get there, how you can live a life where ultimately one day you get to do things the way that you want to do them on your terms in the time frame that you want to, that's the whole reason we do this show. That's the whole reason we put this content out there. If you've not checked out the website, you can go check it out. moneyguide.com. Every Tuesday at 10 a.m., we do a live stream, 10 a.m. Central. We would love for you to get to be a part of that so that we can help you take your finances to the next level.
Guys, thanks for joining us. Love sharing all the details. I'm your host, Brian Preston, Mr. Bo Handsome. Money Guy Team, out.